Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. First of all, I hope everybody likes my hat. I'm not going to be wearing it for the whole video, so don't worry. I got this hat before I started this channel. It was a few weeks ago. I got a hat at a Round Rock Express game. They were giving away big hats. My head is not actually that big. I'm going to take this off and we'll start this video. So, recent news, a couple days ago, Samuel Basallo, Orioles top prospect, number 8 overall in MLB, number 1 overall in the Orioles system, signed a 8-year, $67 million contract with a player option also. And I have a few thoughts about that, but mainly this video is going to be about the Orioles and their future and what's gone wrong this season, kind of, and how they can become a good team again. Because I do think that there is a good team in there somewhere, and I think that Mike Elias did a very poor job of being the general manager in the offseason. And yeah, so we're going to start talking about that. Give me 1 second. All right, we're back. I had to pause the recording for a second, but we're back. And now we're going to talk about Basallo. So first of all, Basallo, like I said, Orioles top prospect, signed an 8-year, $67 million extension. I believe it's going to kick in next year. And for those who are kind of new to baseball, a regular rookie contract is 6 years. In the middle of that, there's arbitration. And arbitration is basically the player has a number of how much they're going to get paid, the team has a number, and they go to a jury, and a jury decides which number is fair. And they can't meet in the middle. It's either the player's number or the team's number. By signing this contract, they not only get Basallo for a couple of extra years, but they also get to skip arbitration, which has been a sore spot with some players in the past, and they get him for a couple extra years, and they get to skip arbitration, skip that whole headache. And Basallo also has a team option, which means the team can decide if they want to bring him back for another year once his contract is up. Meaning that 2035, I believe, is the year, it'll be the 2034 offseason, 2035 season would be the year that he is a free agent. Assuming he's good enough to pick up that team option, which if he is how we expect him to be, that's a no-brainer. Now, Basallo hasn't been in the majors for very long. He's played about 6 games now. I'm actually filming this on a day the Astros won a pretty crazy 9-8 game over the Orioles. That's not really why we're here. But basically, I was in an Orioles mood, and I was like, let's talk about the Orioles. And now I'm going to put the baseball down and get my first card. The Orioles have been very disappointing this year. And there were talks that, I'll have this close. This is usually not, I use this to like read, and they're my notes to know what to talk about. But if you can read them too, that's good. Sometimes my handwriting gets a little bad, so don't expect it to always be readable. These are mainly notes for me, but I will hold them up for people to see. The Orioles are 59-70 after their loss to the Astros. In runs scored, they're 18th. Runs allowed, they're 25th. And they lost Corbin Burnes over the offseason, and now Corbin Burnes had Tommy John surgery for Arizona. So, not a very good year for Corbin Burnes, and along with him being hurt for this year and most of next year. But they didn't add a whole lot of pitching, and with one of their top, who was one of their top prospects, Grayson Rodriguez, getting hurt, and he's going to end up not pitching at all in 2025. Pitching has been an issue for the Orioles, and first of all, it's especially seen in this Astros series. But they're 10 games behind in the wild card to film this. The Mariners and A's are still playing, so if the Mariners win, they'll stay 10 games back. If the Mariners lose, they're 9.5 back. Not sure how that's going yet, how that game's finished yet. I think they're in extra innings. But basically, even though people were disappointed with the Orioles offseason, and they were probably chosen to take a step back because, the Yankees just made the World Series, the Red Sox were supposed to be improved, nobody really expected them to, A, be 10 games under 500, 11 games under 500, and B, nobody expected them to be 10 games out of a wild card spot. And I think that the pitching is the big issue, but we're going to go over their offensive guys. One of the big points of contention with Orioles fans was that Mike Elias did not extend, or David Rubenstein, depending on who you believe was behind these non-extensions and this lack of money being spent, is that the front office, the ownership group, did not extend some of their better players. And this isn't a new thing for Orioles fans. John Angelos, who was the owner of the Orioles before, was not a good owner, did not spend a whole lot of money. And Rubenstein, I don't really know how to say his name, but Rubenstein was supposed to be different. He was supposed to spend a lot of money, but it never happened. Rubenstein said that they had the money to spend and kind of just put it on Elias. But we're going to talk about the O's hitters. The O's had a lot of Orioles O's. That's kind of what that's a nickname for them for non-baseball fans. The Orioles had a lot of hitters. I'll put this up close for you guys to go down the list of a lot of hitters who were good young prospects. A lot of these guys were in the top 100, including Grayson Rodriguez, who I mentioned before, who's a pitcher. And we're going to talk about them. So Adley Rutschman, I have their OPS plus, which is 100 OPS plus is average. Above 100 is above average. Below 100 is below average. And it's an OPS, again, for fans who are new. It's like on base plus slugging. On base is how often a player gets on base. Slugging is like how far you hit the ball. So a home run is worth more in slugging. A triple is worth more in slugging. A double is worth more in slugging than a single. So on and so forth. OPS plus, not the end all be all stat, but it is kind of a good gauge of how good a hitter is performing. So Adley Rutschman, in 500 career games, he has a 116 OPS plus. He was very, very good in 22 and 23. And he was an all-star in 24 and in 23. He was an all-star in 24, but he has slowly gone down. And this year he has not been good. He's also had 2 stints on the IL. And he caught a lot of games. I know that he wasn't a catcher in every single game, but 154 games is a lot for a catcher. 148 games is a lot for a catcher. He played 154 and 23, 148 and 24. Might be part of it. But with Basallo up, who's also a catcher, there's only room really for one full-time catcher. So maybe they decide to trade Adley, or maybe they have one of them play first base, or maybe they have one of them DH. It depends on what they believe they can still get out of Adley, but he hasn't looked very good this year. Jackson Holliday, top prospect. There are 3 main Jacksons who are top prospects in baseball: Jackson Merrill, Jackson Churio, and Jackson Holliday. In 2024, Holliday was probably the worst. But in 25, he's been better. 85 OPS plus and 180 career games. And most of that, he has 94 this year, I believe. Last year was like 67 again. He was not good in his to begin his major league career, but is leading off for the Orioles, and he's been, I'd say, one of the better second basemen in the American League. Second base is kind of a weak position also, so that's part of it. But Holliday, we see some of what people saw in him when he was a prospect. And he's been drawing a lot more walks last couple weeks. Better plate approach. Gunnar Henderson, he had an MVP caliber season. I don't want to call him an MVP candidate last year because Aaron Judge was just going to be the MVP period. But Gunnar Henderson, 136 OPS plus in his career, 464 games. Probably the most talented hitter of this Orioles bunch. Like I said, I believe he was 4th or 3rd in MVP voting last year. And again, he was behind Witt, and also, Judge was just Aaron Judge. He was never going to pass Aaron Judge, unfortunately. And Henderson, very good player, and I would say he's probably the most talented. Colton Cowser, 2nd place in Rookie of the Year voting last year. Bad 23 games, 20-ish games in 2023. He had a good season last year. This year he has struggled, but he has spent time on the IL, a lot of time on the IL. And I'm kind of thinking the season's a wash for Cowser. I still think that he has some of that talent in there. I mean, he's been crushing the Astros the last couple of days. He has a 104 career OPS plus in 240 games. Jordan Westburg, who was also an All-Star in 2024, and also a guy who struggled a lot. Struggled a lot with injuries this year is what I meant, not at the plate. He's been fine at the plate this year. Struggled a lot with injuries. He's only played 73 games in the Orioles 129. He's missed over 50 games. 118 career OPS plus in 248 games. A couple more guys to talk about. Kobe Mayo, 54 career OPS plus in 71 games. Mayo came up and he was not very good in 2024. He didn't make the team out of spring training. He was very disappointed with that. And he didn't look good to start also, but he kind of found his stride late July, early August. He looked like he could actually hit major league hitting. So we'll see. Still a young guy, and 71 games in the majors. Still kind of a small sample size, but entering 2026, you are probably going to want to see some big strides made by Kobe Mayo. Last but not least, we'll talk about Heston Kjerstad. Heston Kjerstad was decent in 23 and 24. This year, he has not been good. He's in the minor leagues right now. He's not even on the Orioles right now. I think he's playing for the Norfolk Tides, I think they're called. AAA team. 83 career OPS plus in 106 games for Heston Kjerstad. So, first of all, as you can tell, Orioles have struggled with injuries this year. Rutschman's had 2 stints on the IL. Cowser, I believe, has had 2 stints on the IL. Westburg has had 2 stints on the IL. Henderson hasn't missed very many games, but he started the year on the IL. He had a side injury, and he missed, maybe the first week of the season. So that's been a part of the reason why I think the Orioles have struggled. But there's definitely talent up and down this lineup. And that's not even counting Dylan Beavers, who just got called up and has had a good week. That's not counting Jeremiah Jackson, who's been a bright spot this month for the Orioles. It's not even counting Basallo. I call him Samuel Basallo. I think it's Samuel Basallo. So apologies for mispronouncing his name. I think it's Samuel Basallo. But there's talent up and down this lineup. And part of the big reason why fans were upset at Elias, and not only because they were not doing good this year, that's a big part of it, but because some of these guys have not been extended. Like I said, Basallo, he's under contract through 2024, or not 2024, 2034. 2024 is over. That was last year. But I wanted to go over my last card. I wanted to go over when these guys are going to be free agents. Adley Rutschman's under contract through the 2027 season. So, right now, I mean, I hate to bring lockout talk into this video, but, will there be a 2027 season? That's really up in the air right now. So theoretically, I mean, if there isn't a 2027 season because of a lockout, next year could be Rutschman's last year as an Oriole, which would be pretty crazy considering how he came up. And a lot of people are curious if this Basallo extension means that Adley's done in Baltimore. And it seems pretty sudden. He dropped off in 24 after the All-Star break, and he hasn't been good this year, and he's been hurt. Maybe they can get something for him. Holiday, free agent, under contract through the 2030 season, hasn't gotten an extension. Gunnar Henderson through the 2028 season, so I hate to say this, but it's really coming up, It's really not that far away. Cowser through the 29 season, Westberg through the 29 season, Kobe Mayo and Heston Kierstad through 2030. We don't even know if they're going to be good in 2030. They have minor league talent, but do they have major league talent, Mayo and Kierstad? We haven't really seen that yet. We've seen flashes of them having major league talent, but we don't know if they can put together a full 162-game season. So, who can they extend? I personally think they could extend anybody. And if Rubenstein's if he's really willing to pay the money, there's no reason for Mike Elias to not pay the money to and extend some of these guys. $67 million to you or me is probably a lot of money, but for a billionaire, and some of these owners are multi-billionaires, $67 million in the grand scheme of things is not a lot of money, and it's not a franchise crippler if Basallo doesn't work out. But if he does work out, $67 million looks really cheap for what he could have gotten in free agency if they didn't sign him to this extension. So that's kind of the thought process behind these contracts. I would say Holiday might be the most likely option to get extended, maybe Cowser. But I imagine that Gunnar Henderson's going to want to test free agency. I think he could be a $400-500 million player if he continues to play at the level he has, offensively and defensively. He is extremely talented. And so I don't know if they can extend Gunnar. I don't know if they want to extend Adley. Like I said, they might want to think about trading him in the offseason. Holiday, Cowser seems like the most likely option. Maybe Westberg. I see him kind of as in the middle, as he can get a big contract when he reaches free agency. But also not so big that it's like a Gunnar Henderson level contract. That's kind of where I stand with that. I do hope that the Orioles can extend these guys. I have a soft spot for the Orioles. They're one of the first teams that I rooted for. The A's also. I liked the Orioles and the A's when I first started becoming a fan. And I remember a lot of bad Orioles teams, even though those two teams aren't my favorite now. I remember a lot of bad Orioles teams when I was younger. In 2018, they lost 115 games. In 2019, I believe they lost 108. In 2021, they lost 110, 112. A lot of losses for Orioles fans to sit through. It would be a shame if all these guys who they were able to get because of those losses, all these high draft picks that they had, it would be a shame if those guys were to leave and in free agency. And all of that suffering through losses is almost completely, I don't want to say pointless, because they did have a good season. In 23, they did have a good season. They won 101 games. They did get completely outplayed by the Rangers in 2020, in the 2023 ALDS. But they did have a good season, and I think it's a lesson for fans to truly enjoy when good seasons happen, because not every team can be like the Dodgers, not every team can be like the Astros and win games, win a bunch of games every year and win divisions every year. And definitely enjoy when your team's good, because you don't know when they're going to be good again, and you don't know how long it's going to last. So hopefully they can extend some of these guys. I I think Gunnar Henderson and Kowser and Holiday and Westberg look good in Orioles uniforms, and I definitely hope that they stay, and Rushman too. I hope everybody enjoyed this video. These are just some kind of thoughts, not only about Basallo's extension, which I think is a smart idea. Like I said, I kind of tried to explain it in the middle of the video, but also about how this could be a new turning point for the Orioles, where they extend some of these guys. Like I said, I added these guys who are theoretically, sorry, I got a low battery percentage warning on my phone. I had these guys who were Orioles top prospects at one point. How they're doing. This isn't even including Dylan Beavers, who's had a good week in the majors. This isn't including Basallo. This isn't including Jeremiah Jackson, who's performed very well for them. And also, these aren't the only Orioles top prospects. They had Connor Norby and Kyle Stowers, who they traded for Trevor Rogers last year. Rogers wasn't good last year. He has been good this year, but Rogers wasn't good last year. And not Connor Norby, sorry. Kyle Stowers has looked really good in a Marlins uniform. He's performed very well. And they also had Joey Ortiz, who they traded to the Brewers for Corbin Burns. They traded DL Hall and Joey Ortiz to the Brewers. Ortiz started off good last year, ended up being about average, and he hasn't been good this year. But the Orioles, they had probably the brightest future in baseball from what it looked like in 2022. And a lot of people were happy for them. A lot of fans were like, it's finally time for the Orioles to win some games. And things have kind of gone sideways this year. So I hope you all enjoyed this video about Samuel Basallo and also about some of the other Orioles who haven't been extended yet. And I hope everyone will come back for another video. Goodbye. Have a good day, night. It's night for me right now. But have a good night, everybody.